Hey yo, Koku, what
Hey.
up?
Oh, it's just the regs, the huge.
Hey man, it ain't usual. You're not even on my side no more. What happened?
I was looking for things in terms of living conditions and amenities that I knew I could not afford in Brooklyn. And so the only
Quality of life.
solution to that was to defect, leave the town,
Mhm.
and go somewhere that was close enough that I could still be outside.
But the energy is like it's different. I feel like there's some different ethnic energy. There's some different. It's
It is
different.
it is so different out here. Like, I first of all, I am surrounded like the in terms of like ethnicities and things like that. I'm surrounded by Guyanese people. Shout out to the Guyanese.
Word.
It's straight
You're
up
probably
Guyanese.
very confusing for them, by the way.
Yeah, they just so they don't like and I mean everybody's like Guyanese, or there's a lot of Mexicans out here, specifically very Mexican Guyanese.
That's what's up.
I did not know this was a very strong Mexican neighborhood. That's pretty cool because there's some damn good Mexican food.
Oh yeah.
Um, oh yeah, absolutely. It's like I don't know. A lot of Hondurans.
Oh okay.
Yeah, I'm in a sort of like a Central South America, like kind
You
of.
in a very Uber Eats like way
Yeah,
station.
Oasis. Yes. Speaking of Uber Eats, if I wanted to just like wild out and just like order food every day, there's so many more choices here than you could ever
Wow.
imagine. And it's also like I drive too. So
Does that change like where you are with like your Wendy's, like those staples, your Chick-fil-A's? Have you shifted a little more into?
I'm still on that. Like one thing I won't give up is like Taco Bell.
Okay,
But
okay,
but
that's
the
a wild. That's like a wild statement. I'm just gonna say it off top, like
no Taco Bell's breakfast is crazy. Like it's
yeah,
best
yeah.
out. They got an amazing breakfast. But they only serve it till like 11, so that's sad. But I feel like I'm in like a bedroom sleeping community though, to some extent. It seems like a
Okay,
lot of people here that are not necessarily part of the fabric. Like, I mean, I'm a gentrifier, right?
right, right.
Um, so a lot of us that are not
No,
necessarily part
same,
of
same. Like look
the,
around, like you know what I mean, like clearly.
it just is what it is. But those of us that are not part of the actual fabric, like in terms of like
Mhm.
family ties or stuff like that, um, it's like a bedroom community in the sense where like most of us we treat this like the suburbs. Like,
Okay.
all my business is really in Brooklyn, and so
Oh,
I could just hop on the LIRR. I'm literally in Brooklyn, like in 7 minutes,
yo,
or
that's wild.
yeah, it's crazy. Or I could just drive because I drive, and
Yeah.
it takes me 15 minutes to get to Brooklyn because I know the side streets too. So it's like I
Yeah, I mean, look, the live
nothing.
podcast may happen. The live podcast may
Yeah,
happen. It's already like
nothing in my life is lost. It's all the same.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yo, I just wanted to get into it because there was something that you told me about that I had no clue about logic, where logic isn't black to people. Like what
Yes.
happened there?
So this is okay. So let me just start this by saying this. Logic is a very, very easy target to a lot of people. He gets attacked by like a lot of
Yeah,
podcasters and
yeah.
bloggers, and there's always a hot take or somebody that just like goes. There's always like every day there's a tweet that goes, "Wait, Logic is black." It's gonna
Right, right,
happen
right.
every single day.
He's the new
And
Bobby Caldwell. Rest in peace.
exactly. But with Logic, it's more like it's different because Bobby Caldwell wasn't black, but
Right,
Logic
right.
is black.
Is black, right?
Yeah. Um, but with Logic, he's very sensitive to the dialogue because I mean he clearly has a black father.
Right.
I was kind of looking into some of his stuff, and his sibling, his brother, he's while light skinned, he's clearly black too. So Logic is just
Mm,
someone that presents more, is just more white presenting. But he's very sensitive to people not, that sort of disregard his blackness.
you
And
said a term there that I feel like I want to help. I want people to know and
mm,
understand. You said white presenting,
yes,
and
like
I want to
or
understand that.
yeah, so white presenting, or basically, if we want to get like kind of more a little bit more like biological and sciencey about it, that's like when somebody says somebody like your phenotypical features, right?
Uh,
Like how you might walk in this neighborhood and people might assume that you're Panamanian. Right. And you're just like, well, I'm Jamaican. Or like when I'm walking in this neighborhood, sometimes people think I'm Guyanese, and it's like,
right.
I'm East African, so it's like, it's just interesting. Like, I mean, I like around here, everybody thinks I'm some kind of West Indian, or it starts to spill into like,
you're very racial roulette for a lot of people.
It confuses me because I don't understand why that would happen to a dark-skinned person. Like that's why, like, this is some real, like, why would that happen? I don't know.
But I mean, you've been in parts of the world now where you see how that happens. Like how,
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like where the textures is more varied than we're used to seeing maybe here in the States. But like
that's true.
Because if in Cuba they on some like yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like the remember Tracy Morgan's character, Cuban Lou? I forget who he played. He on the Uptown Comedy Club at Saturday Night Live. He used to do the character, and it was Tracy Morgan, but he just had his hair was in a flat press. You know what I'm saying? But it was like that's like Cuba is like that. Like Cuba, there's a lot of dudes who look like that. But I feel like this needs a visual, so I'm gonna pull up the visual that you sent me, which is insane.
This is what kicked off, yeah.
Yeah. So just talk a little bit about what's going on here, because why is this the tweet?
Why is this the tweet? So basically, in this tweet, the person says both are ethnically mixed. One is black, one is white. Nothing wrong with it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But then the following tweet is then only one of them can say nigga.
Ooh, wow.
Now, here's my issue with because the reason why we got back here, Logic is back, in the viral cycle, is because he did a cover of I believe it was Ice Cube's "Today Was a Good Day," and he said nigga in the cover. And people were like, well, hold on, why that white boy saying nigga? And I'm just like, here we go again, Logic. Like you did it to yourself this time.
Oh no!
You did it. Like I can't, I can't keep trying to defend someone's ability to identify when
his voice is blackfishing.
So I just felt like Logic. Like a lot of times when people see you, they think that you're white. So if I were him, I wouldn't even want to even go there. Like I wouldn't even want to have that conversation. I'd be like, oh no, it's cool, because who wants to have why should that be a sentence that you say?
But he wants to go there. That's his thing.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like, well, Logic, some people are just very attention seeking, and it's like to the extent that it could be a good attention or bad attention, but they crave that, and I feel like
follow-up question to that. Why are you doing an acoustic "Today Was a Good Day"? You know what I'm saying? Like, what would make people think you were black? Doing some MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
Why was you doing that, Jay? Like, he was on the mic, he was singing and shit. I was like, yo, why did you?
That's a great point. That's a great point to that. But here's a hot take I hadn't thought about earlier, but I'm gonna go here. Now, let's suppose that, we're talking about in terms of like people are saying one is black and one is white, right? In terms of like using Boris Kodjoe's blackness as an example, because Boris Kodjoe walking down the street, you would never know, like you'd never assume he had a white parent. I wouldn't if I didn't know.
No,
him.
You can't.
No,
look at him. Look at him. That's not the white man. Like
I just would never. I would never assume that.
This is a crazy side by side, by the way. Like, it does Logic no favors.
But that's the thing with Logic, and you see that a lot with gossip blogs. Whenever someone is trying to like emphasize their point, they like the person that they're like sort of against, they just get a crazy screenshot of the person. So it's like he was never gonna win that,
Yeah.
But here's something I thought about, and I was like, if you think about it, in terms of like where the argument of blackness is, in how these people are trying to frame it, Boris Kodjoe was not raised in the United States. No, he has a German parent, and I believe a German parent and an African parent.
Oh wow!
So by these people's definition, Logic has more of a black lived experience.
Yeah, he's got a black affinity.
Yes, than Boris Kodjoe does. So, and again, that's not me telling either way. I don't want to go there as far as that's just what I'm saying is like the hot take could go there for Boris too. If you guys want to,
it's a slippery slope. Well, I mean, I think I'm more squarely in that camp. Or like, what is your lived experience? Because like this cropped up with Meghan Markle for a minute too, where people started to say that she was white passing, and it was like, nah, G, like that's not how that word works, and that's not how that's functioning. Like white presenting, like you were saying, is that like, okay, there are things about you visually that to white folks may be signifying of, oh, she's one of us, or she, not black. It'll look to white folks like not black. Now, Logic is on the other side of that coin, where to black folks, there are things visually that we're like, are you? Because I'm not. And I think one of the things that he does, which is a little coy and a little cute, too cute by half, is this "Today was a good day." Like, you take one of the most classic black culture genre songs and you turn it into like a folk elevator music cover. It was very weird. It was a very weird choice. And then I think it's a kind of troll to react to it too, to be like, oh, like I don't get to do black things, and it's like,
that's what I'm saying. He knows what he's doing too. Yeah,
he's very aware. He's very aware of what he's doing. He's very like internet savvy. He's definitely from that generation. He's cut from that mold. And while I agree with you that we don't get to choose how people identify,
yes,
I think we can discern between people who are a threat to us and people who are not a threat.
No, okay, that's perfectly stated.
So Logic, I completely consider him non-threatening.
I think he's non-threatening. I think that Meghan Markle's late stage, I'm finally seen as colored type of like energy. She's a threat to me.
She's a wild threat. She definitely is going to HR. Like, if something happens between you and her at work, she's definitely going to HR.
She's a threat.
You know what I mean?
I find I find a lot of the dialogue around what's happened in their world, as I've talked about the worlds at length. I just find them I don't think I just find like if you can accept that in your world, then you're no different than it.
Right. Yeah. Like they're like, before those lines got crossed, there was a whole lot of shit that you was just letting slide. And that's why it's suspicious. It's at least sus when those kind of people are like, oh, but wait, I didn't know. Like, it's at least sus. And then it borders on dangerous. Whereas Logic is like, hey, like, can you tell I'm black? Today I am. I'm definitely black right now. And I think he can headline and do types of shows and types of tours because of the subject matter of his music, in which he does claim black. Like, he definitely claims a black experience.
Yes, he does.
He is black. I'm not going to refute that, but I think he understands, because of who he plays to and how he plays his content, that he is not seen as threatening. He is not seen as black. And so I want to give, like, I'm going to stick up for the darker brothers right now. And I want to say that the indignation that we sometimes feel when a white presenting person does that little like peekaboo, like it's like, come on, like, we know what that is. Like, we know when you're playing it for clicks and for visibility and for clout. And he does that a lot. And I would say it's like, it's annoying, but it's not dangerous. You know what I mean?
That's a fair point.
But I do think this like is weird, because now it's kind of hit this who you marry or who you're with.
Yes, and I want to before you go back to that point, there's just one more thing I wanted to say on Logic, in that sense that we have to also, even though we do see him as non-threatening in that sense, he doesn't like, I don't have to think about Logic. Like, people make him, make us think about him. We can't, again, speaking to the dark skin experience. Now, while you can be Logic and say I'm black, that a lot of times what sometimes a person like a Logic might do is not acknowledged that their experience is very, very different than yours and I.
Right.
You know, because they, and you know, so it's like, I get it. I'm not ever going to tell you how to identify, but at the same time, you know that our lives are very different because of how you are perceived.
Yeah, and there's a thing on social media where because everyone has a megaphone, the light skins who are like, no, but my experience is just as alienating. Those they get a really big platform to say that nonsense. To you know, like which is like, yeah, you have alienating parts of your experience, but when it becomes that like, oh, but it's the same, like that is where it gets kind of crazy, just like real completely unhinged. And like, yeah, I'm definitely glad he doesn't do that. Like he doesn't do that. He's very like clear to not do that. With Meghan Markle, I don't know. You know, like I'm not sure whether or not she would pull that kind of card, but it seems likely. But yeah, I do think that it's tricky.
With Meghan Markle, to me, like when you see her younger pictures where her actual regular texture hair was out, she didn't look white passing to me.
No.
At all.
Not even a little.
So I just find it curious, you know, that like she just does not wear her natural hair.
Yeah. No, it's a choice. It's
so
a
I'm
choice.
Just like,
Logic come out here curly. Logic like is affected by the humidity. You know what I'm saying? Like he knows. He knows what's going on.